So the last day, inflation. That was the topic we were dealing last time. And we know what is inflation and what are the main features of inflation. Then types of inflation we have done. Types of inflation on the basis of the average rise in the general level of prices. You classify as mild inflation or creeping inflation, walking inflation, running inflation, jumping, galloping inflation, as well as hyperinflation. On the basis of the reason behind the inflation causes, we have demand pull inflation as well as cost push inflation. Then we saw the other concepts, current concepts on the term inflation. What is meant by disinflation? What is double dip, agflation? Then skew inflation, built-in inflation. All these are different concepts currently used to describe various types of inflation in the economy. Then we saw the effects of inflation, how inflation is affecting different sections of the population, because inflation has a characteristic feature of discrimination. It discriminates the different sections of the population, and in fact the effect of inflation is different on different sections of the population. How it is affecting the daily wage earning class of persons, how the fixed income salary government employees, how it influences the pensioners, retired service pensioners, how it influences. Then the debtors and creditors, what is the effect of inflation on debtors and what is the influence of inflation on creditors. So also the equity holders and bond holders, how the inflation will influence the income of the equity holders as well as the bond holders in the financial market. And lastly, the government, how far government is affected by the inflationary pressures. These are the things we have already covered. Then continuing one more, that is methods to control inflation. Instruments or methods to control inflation. Methods. Not only inflation, both inflation as well as deflation. To regulate and control, what instruments we can use in the Indian situation especially. What are the principal methods by which we adjust the inflationary and deflationary pressures in the economy with reference to Indian situation? Methods can be broadly classified into three different types. Three different varieties of instruments or methods are applied for controlling inflationary pressure and the deflationary situation in an economy. And these three sets of measures are, one, we may say, the monetary policy measures. Monetary policy instrument. Monetary policy instrument, one set, and the monetary policy means the instrument or monetary packages, instruments or the monetary packages introduced by the Reserve Bank of India, RBI policy measures. RBI policy measures is what we refer to as the monetary policy measures. Then we have another set of packages introduced by government on all the three levels, central government, state, local, all the three levels government may use another policy instrument package known as fiscal, FISCAL, fiscal policy measures. To control inflation as well as deflation, government policy measures can be fiscal policy measures. And similarly, there is another third group of instrument that is also government on the three central, state as well as the local level apply, known as the physical, PHY, physical policy measures. Physical policy measures. So broadly classifying the various types of instruments applied in the Indian context for regulating or controlling inflationary and deflationary situation, three sets. RBI packages monetary policy, government packages to fiscal, FISCAL, fiscal policy measure, as well as the government fiscal policy measure. We may take first of all the last one. The last one, physical policy measures. And in the physical policy measure, we mean government is directly entering into the market. Government directly enters into the market for controlling inflationary pressure by strengthening the PDS, public distribution system. By strengthening the public distribution system, government commodity distribution system, it is possible to control the pressure of inflation in the country. But this is especially used for inflationary situation. That is, essential commodities are sold through the public distribution system at a reasonable price. At a lower price, at a reasonable price through the public distribution system, essential commodities are sold so that in the private market, merchants may not raise the price during inflationary period to very higher a level. They will not increase the price to a very higher a level because they know government departmental stores are supplying these commodities at a concessional lower price, so that they may frighten. The private individuals, merchants may frighten to increase the prices of commodity as the government departmental stores are supplying sufficient materials, essential materials especially, at a rate lower than what is prevailing in the market. So that the private sector market price may not increase, frightening the availability of materials in the public distribution sector. And the public distribution chain, in case of India, the most important public distribution center is ration shop. Ration shop is the highest linking of or large linking facility of commodity supplies in the economy through public distribution system, ration shop. Similarly, in case of Kerala, we may say we have Maveli store, Needi store, Labham store, Sulabham store, Triveni store. In all these cases, at fixed price where there is no bargaining is permitted. There is no bargaining is permitted, including the ration shop. There is no bargaining is permitted. Commodities are sold at the price that is fixed by government. Government fixed price, essential commodities are sold, market mechanism is not permitted. And so that these are all, we may say, the most important sources of departmental source for selling commodities through the public distribution system. All are public distribution systems. Isn't it? In case of Kerala, there is a separate department also, government department also working for the distribution of essential commodities through these market, Civil Supplies Corporation. Through the Civil Supplies Corporation, essential commodities are sold, and so that it is in a method you can restrain the rising trend of prices in the private sector. Not only after the inflation, we are strengthening the public distribution system. Our government is strengthening the public distribution system. Not only after inflation has, resulted in the economy, but even prior to the inflation, if there is a possibility of inflationary rise in the prices, in anticipation of a possible rise in the general level of prices, as a precaution, in advance, government can start the temporary public distribution centers in the country. Temporarily, public distribution centers may be opened in anticipation in anticipation of a possible price rise in near future. For example, festival season. If we take the festival season, normally in case of Kerala, festival season means Onam season, a most important season for sale of commodities in Kerala. Even from outside, merchants will come for sales in Kerala because of the festival season, Onam season. About every year, August-September period, there is a possibility of inflation in Kerala as there is festival season. So that in anticipation of such a possible rise in the prices due to Onam. Similarly, due to Christmas also. During Christmas season also, there is a chance of rising trend of prices if the market is left free without any control. Ramzan season. At that time also there is a possibility of more demand in the economy. As a result, price rise, inflation may be possible. But these are all occasions where government can anticipate during this period every year there can be a possible rise in the prices. So that temporary markets are opened throughout the state as a method for containing and reducing the possible inflationary pressure. During Onam season, Onam Chanda or Christmas Chanda or this Ramzan Chanda, temporary. Throughout the state, temporary outlets are opened, and through the temporary outlets, essential commodities are sold at a concessional lower prices. That is in anticipation. In anticipation, before the inflation actually rising in the economy, in anticipation of a possible rise in the general prices, sufficient precautionary measure. As a precautionary measure to reduce a little, to stop the possible rise in the general level of prices, temporary outlets may be open and we can control the possible rise in the inflation. All these are strengthening policy, strengthening the public distribution system. It is a direct method. Government is not by means of any orders or not by means of any instrument, but government becomes a seller in the market. Directly, government agent, the department is entering into the market and selling the commodities necessary for the day-to-day purposes. What commodities are necessary, it is sold. So that is one of the most important economic methods. One of the most important economic policy that can be adopted by government in anticipation of a possible rise in the prices or when the price is going on increasing, to stop the possible rise. You can strengthen the public distribution system and reduce the possible rise in the prices. So that is what is called physical, PHY, physical policy method. The central government, state government as well as local bodies can do. Physical strengthening is possible on the part of the three levels. Central government can do, state government can also do, and even the local governments can open temporarily or permanently shops for controlling prices, which is known as physical policy measures. Coming over to fiscal, FIS, fiscal policy measure that we have already studied along with the public finance. In public finance we have already studied. But you know that fiscal policy is mainly referring to budgetary policy of central and state government. Central government, state government can adopt a budgetary policy which is called a fiscal policy. Fiscal policy means government policy measure, government package. Government package in the form of a fiscal policy can be a budgetary policy. We have already seen that budgetary policy to control inflation is prepare a surplus budget. That we have already taken about this policy, namely the budgetary policy, which is a fiscal policy. Central government, state government as well as the local government should prepare what type of a budget? Surplus budget. Surplus budget is prepared during which season? Inflationary period. Inflationary period, the budget prepared by the government in all the three levels should be with a intention of reducing the pressure of inflation. And in order to reduce the pressure of inflation, while budget is prepared, total revenue shall be greater than the total expenditure. The entire total revenue raised by way of tax and non-tax is not spent. Only a lesser amount than what is collected by way of revenue is spent through the budgetary provision. Our expenditure is adjusted. Expenditure is reduced during inflationary period. Expenditure is reduced and the excess revenue collected is kept unspent in the treasury. The collected revenue, excess collected revenue is unspent in the treasury. It is kept only if the government is preparing a surplus budget. It is possible, because only through a preparation of this surplus budget, government can reduce expenditure, and revenue greater than the expenditure, such a budget is prepared. Excess revenue collected, unspent and kept in the treasury, so that the pressure of inflation we can reduce. And during a period of depression, suppose there is a period of depression, we know during depression period what shall be the policy? Stimulate the economy. Stimulate the economy, since there is a depression, low production, low income, low employment opportunity, all the aggregate activities are at a lower level during depression period. So what is necessary during depression period? Stimulate the economy, revive the economy to get upward movement. And in order to go up, the economy should be given sufficient stimulus by the preparation of what type of a budget? Deficit budget. Prepare a deficit budget during depression period, because what do you mean by deficit budget? Total expenditure is exceeding total revenue. Total expenditure greater than total revenue. More than the revenue that is collected, excess money is used for expenditure purposes, so that more money can be pumped into the economy to avoid the downtrend. When there is a downtrend or depression is faced, boost up the economy, revive the economy, stimulate the economy. That is very necessary. And for that purpose, what is required? The budget should be prepared in such a manner that excess expenditure, more expenditure than what is collected by method of revenue. Revenue and total expenditure, when you are comparing, excess expenditure, total expenditure is exceeding the total revenue, for which government should prepare deficit budget. Then only government can spend a lot of money and the downtrend we can avoid. Mainly remember, surplus budget during inflationary period, deficit budget during depression period, cure to inflation and depression through budgetary policy measures of central, state and local government.